Hello, 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 my friends. So, I've been wanting to share this for quite a while. See, I've been messing around in Ark, spawning creatures, and I found on YouTube a good little size comparison for how big each creature was. So that gave me an idea to give you all, from my uncoverings, a visual representation of exactly how big some of the creatures in Welcome to the Show are, by giving little stand-ins. For instance, this fella here, this, minus the wings of course, is exactly how big Amber would have been in her base form. It too is roughly about 8 feet in length, maybe a little more. But yeah, this is a good idea of the size Amber is in her base dragon form. Now, 1 second please. That's in the mouth. Now, by of course contrast, this right here, this big fella, is how big Amber would be in her berserk form. And as you can see, her jaw is pretty much big enough to swallow me whole, and I barely come up to shoulder height. Most certainly a significant growth spurt, but of course, there's a new form added recently, isn't there? And thus, this, my friends, is how big Amber's final form would be. Quite a significant jump from size, even from her berserk form. But that's not the only creature in BroDD, is it? First of all, let's take a look at the Bala. First of all, this charming fella right here, standing about 10 feet tall, is roughly about how tall a typical D&D Bala is. They're only considered large size, but Josh decided to give the Bala a very intimidating size upgrade, and this is how tall Josh's Bala would be. As you would agree, a much more intimidating presence. Speaking of intimidating, let's see how big the Necronaut would be. Now this, ladies and gentlemen, and sorry, this seems a little on the move, in the ruins of a collapsed city is where I thought would be the best place to show you this terrifying size of the Necronaut. With a creature that somewhat keeps its shape, the Death Worm. Yep. So, you in the ruins of Gatlas were fighting something roughly the size of that thing. Don't say Josh doesn't ever do anything fun for you. Now, onto a character who, while not as physically intimidating, certainly had a presence to her. This is roughly the size and shape of Lolth, the Spider Queen. Fortunately, I was able to get a fairly Centaurian insectoid arthropod form, which is large sized. So yeah, this is actually a pretty good representation of how big Lolth was. Not as huge as some of the other creatures, but still definitely bigger than a normal person. But our journey continues. We go for something a little more aquatic, and we find Bliss's underwater nemesis, the Kraken. Now, funnily enough, this squid here is actually a good approximation of the size of Josh's Kraken, which again, I believe I'd have to double check is a little bit larger than the standard Kraken. Josh likes to do that, boosting the sizes up. And no, I do not believe I have something to show the size of a standard Kraken. At least not one that would fit the body type. Oh yeah, look at that beak. Nasty thing. You can just imagine it's easily crunching you up. So, let's now move on to something a little more demonic. See this little diorama here? This is the army you had to face in the first layer of hell. Here I have the 22 dretches represented by these birds here. The 3 Hezrau represented by these big feet. The 2 Marilis represented by the mantises. And of course, towering above all of it, the Bala. So, and you were standing about here when you first saw it, so yeah. That's what all y'all fought. Good job. You did quite well for yourselves. But as always, we must save the best till last. And first I've come back here in order to give you a bit of a size comparison. See the Tarask. Now, as before with the Bala, Josh decided it would be a good idea to increase the size from standard. By comparison, this fella here is the size of a normal Tarask. As you can perhaps see, though the difference is admittedly subtle, it is certainly bigger than Amber, more bulkier, more heavy set, but not excessively so. It is big and powerful, but in all honesty, the Bala is almost just as big. No, we wanted to go something special. We wanted to go something memorable. So, how big is Josh's Tarask, you may ask? That big. So big that your characters don't even come up to it. Even Amber's Berserk form doesn't even reach the size of it. This is the size of the biggest creature you have ever fought. This, my friends, is Josh Scorcher's Tarask. You're wanting kaiju bliss? There is your kaiju.